Our next presenting company is Osiris Therapeutics, and here to tell us the story is the president and CEO, Lodi de Brabander. Hey, Lodi. Yeah. Well, Lodi, we're at about 12 minutes a person right now because we're running so far.
Okay. All right, thanks. Just 3 more to go, so hang in there. So what I wanted to do today is just talk a little bit about our most recent accomplishments and developments, shed some light on our strategy moving forward in the next couple of years, and then I want to wrap it up by giving you 2 specific examples of how we make our strategy of differentiation come to life with 2 products I wanted to spend a couple minutes on. So obviously there might be forward-looking statements in this presentation. I recommend you to look at the filings at the SEC for more information. Osiris has been around for quite a long time, as you know. Actually, 22 years ago, we were founded out of intellectual property out of Case Western. Everything what we did over those 22 years was basically focused on the mesenchymal stem cell. And so, over these 22 years, we really have been building a core expertise, a core competency on cell biology, cell therapeutics, and regenerative medicine. Our manufacturing processes, our science, our discoveries, our clinical programs, and actually our products, more importantly, or most importantly, are the testimony to this leadership in regenerative medicine. So like I said, we started in 92. In 98, Osiris was the very first company that infused mesenchymal stem cells into a patient. In 2005, Osiris was the first one to launch a stem cell containing product called Osteocell for bone growth and spine fusion. We sold that product in 2008 to Nuvasive for $100 million, and that probably was the very first time that regenerative medicine became real. It's a real business, there's real money to be made. In 2012, Osiris achieved approval on Prochymal. The very first stem cell drug that got approval was a systemically infused allogeneic product, pure MSCs. And right now, we are focused on 2 specific areas. One is tissue repair and tissue regeneration, with graphics being our lead product, and orthopedics and sports medicine with Cardiform Innovation OS. We wouldn't have been here where we are right now if we wouldn't have had this long institutional knowledge on cell biology and regenerative medicine. And we did have to make some very serious, tough choices along the way. One of those being selling Osteocell was a great product. We did sell it for $100 million. The other one, making a choice to sell Prochymal. We also received $100 million for that. So that actually makes those 2 choices a little bit less difficult if you get $200 million in the bank for it. But nevertheless, we had to make those choices, and it allowed us to focus. It allowed us to focus on what I would consider 2 real sweet spots in regenerative medicine, which is tissue repair, reconstruction, and regeneration, and motion preservation in orthopedics and sports medicine. And I'll talk to you a little bit later about some specific products in those areas. So moving to most recent developments about the last year that happened at Osiris that I think are really important and speak to the transformation the company has gone through. I bucketed them in R&D and commercial. First and foremost, we're really proud of the clinical study we reported with graphics. This was a clinical study, a phase 3 quality clinical trial, multi-center, randomized, blinded, controlled clinical study in 20 centers across the United States for patients with diabetic foot ulcers. The study had an overwhelming efficacy, met all primary and secondary endpoints, and I would say it doesn't happen very regularly that in this space that you have large clinical randomized control studies that are overwhelmingly positive. So that was really a major breakthrough for us and for the space. Secondly, we launched Cardiform Innovation OS in sports medicine and orthopedics. These are products that take a little bit more time to get some more robust clinical data. This is not like a 6-week wound closure trial. This is a 1 to 2 years trials to get clinical endpoints. And so we are really collecting long-term data on these products, and I will talk about Cardiform in a second. And like I mentioned, we partnered Prochymal. It was very important for us. We got $100 million for it. but most importantly, I would say it allowed us to focus all the resources we have in the two specific areas I talked to you about. Commercially, another area of significant transformation for Osiris. Last year, I would say we tiptoed into the commercial space for the first time. I would say we went from what we were called traditionally the Osiris University, and we became the Osiris Enterprise. We had 10 sales representatives at that point in time. I can tell you in the last 3 months, we expanded our direct sales force to 60. We expanded also our reimbursement team, marketing team, customer service, et cetera, et cetera. So the organization is going through some significant change. All of that basically driven by the positive results in our graphics trial. 2013, we generated $24.3 million, which was tripling 2012. But again, with somewhat, I would say, a tiptoeing into the commercial space in 2013. We improved gross margins. This was something that Silvio talked about over lunchtime, really important. We improved it 5 basis points from 67 to 73. I'm not happy yet. We're pushing this all the way up to 80%. But also our products are somewhat labor intensive and complicated to make. So there is definitely a cost of goods involved in those, but we are making significant progress in those margins. It's always good to be a company that has about $75 million in the bank and has a very strong balance sheet. This is our trajectory quarter-over-quarter growth of revenue. It's just the last 8 quarters, and I think you can see a very steady, continued growth of our business. And last quarter, we reported an $8.1 million quarter. Again, I think that, you know, if this meeting would have been held 5 years ago, we would exclusively talk about pipelines and research. Today, we can actually say that regenerative medicine is a real business, and it's growing fast, and we really have the plan to keep this graph going the way how it's going. Moving forward, though, you know, our strategy in the next 2-3 years is based on innovation, on continuing the commercial expansion we are undergoing right now, and on differentiating our products from the competition. So just talk a minute about innovation. I probably can spend the whole day about innovation, but only have a few minutes. What I can tell you is that what has not changed at Osiris is that innovation is our core competency, and that is going to stay that way. I can say that if you develop and launch 5 products in the last 10 years, you do have some track record on innovation. That's the definition of innovation. You got to translate that research into products. We had 5 products developed and launched. 2 of them were sold for $200 million. The remaining 3 are generating the revenue curve I just showed you. A second thing that will never change at Osiris is that we are very serious about understanding the science and the biology behind our products. We'll continuously do that, and graphics and Cardiform and Ovation OS are great examples. As we characterize these products, we better understand how they work and why they work. What has changed in the way how we do innovation is that we really have become way more focused. We can continue to work on intelligent therapies, therapies that fix problems that you really cannot fix with a drug or a biologic. I'm not aware of any drug or a biologic that regenerates tissue or regenerates cardiform. So I think that's the kind of products that we will continuously focus on in our innovation strategy. I'm not going to give a lot of updates on the pipeline. We have always been pretty quiet about our pipeline activities, but I can tell you that the whole scientific muscle of Osiris is focused in wound care and in orthopedics and sports medicine. And we will give you updates as we are getting ready to launch new and improved products. All of the products are going to be in the 2 areas that I mentioned, which I consider really sweet spots for regenerative medicine. Now, it's great to have great products, and your laboratories can get great products. What is really important as this space evolves is make from great products great brands, and that that requires us to be really serious about commercial excellence. And as I already mentioned to you that the commercial transformation is something that we are going through right now. It's pretty new for us. It is a significant change. I would say for the very first time in the history of Osiris Therapeutics, we'll invest this year significantly more in commercial expansion compared to R&D. And I think it's because it's needed. We have great products. We just really have to support them and make them great brands. I mentioned that we're expanding our sales force, reimbursement, marketing, customer service, et cetera, et cetera. However, I think one area that we'll probably talk a lot about in the next 10 years as a regenerative medicine alliance here is market access and reimbursement. Again, something that we don't really talk about a lot in this area, but I can tell you that it's going to be needed. And I would bet you that in the next 10 years, this is going to be the topic. Reimbursement, market access, it's not easy. It's quite complex, it's highly fragmented, but it has to become a core competency of everybody in this audience here, because I know that your products, as well as mine, are not cheap. So you really will have to have a very robust value proposition to the payers. So the first thing you got to do is have a good team, a focused team on market access and reimbursement. We announced this morning that we actually hired Teresa Dixon as our general manager for market access and reimbursement. Really pleased that Teresa is joining our team. Teresa she was previously vice president of health policy and market access and reimbursement at Shire, previously ABH, and she was the driving force behind a very successful, I would say, commercial or very successful reimbursement campaign of Dermagraft. So we're really pleased that she joins the team, and she actually is bringing quite some people from her own team, her ex-team as well, to Osiris Therapeutics. Practically speaking, we are still working ourselves through the process to get graphics reimbursed. This is a process that takes 6 to 9 months. I'm really pleased with the progress we have made, and I will be able to give you some very significant updates very shortly. Another area that we are working on within that space of reimbursement is that, like I said, it is changing. CMS is changing. CMS is changing the way how we're going to get reimbursed in the skin substitute marketplace. We are in the second quarter of this year launching 4 new sizes of graphics. This helps in reducing wastage, but also really makes it, makes a lot of sense that as your wound is closing, you come up with different sizes that mimic that wound size reduction. So we are really trying to get ready and be optimally positioned for 2015 and beyond with our product portfolio, and so that we fall within that CMS bundling rule that they established recently. Differentiation. I mean, you can differentiate in many different ways. Obviously, when you talk about these kind of products, your manufacturing technology is a main area of differentiation. But obviously, your science, your clinical programs, et cetera, or areas of differentiation. I want to spend a minute or two on Cardiform, because I really believe that is a highly differentiated product that might actually be a game changer in sports medicine. This presentation, this is a slide out of the presentation I took from Dr. Vangsness 2 weeks ago. He was the American Orthopedic Society in New Orleans, and he presented the characterization of a novel viable cartilage mesh for microfracture augmentation for focal chondral defects. A little bit of background. Cartilage is a tissue that does not regenerate. When you have a defect, you can compare it like a pothole in your articular cartilage. It is not going to regenerate. It has no vascularization whatsoever. But sequelae are pretty serious. If you don't treat it, or if you don't fix it, you will get osteoarthritis, and down the road you will go pretty fast to total knee replacement. So it is a big unmet medical need. The current procedures are all not really working very well. The most frequently used procedure, the standard of care, is microfracture. Microfracture is nothing more than just drilling some tiny little holes through the cartilage into the bone, such that the blood is coming into the kneecap, as well as the bone marrow. So you get nutrients and you get stem cells out of your bone marrow, and you just cross your fingers then and hope that this is going to regenerate that defect. Well, it does a little bit. The problem is it doesn't do it well. In 78% of the cases, it fails. And the reason why it fails is that you generate fibrocartilage, not hyaline cartilage. So you generate some sort of a tissue that's not functional. And so what we have done is we have developed a product, Cardiform, that's actually augmenting microfracture. It's not replacing microfracture, it's really augmenting. It's designed to make microfracture work. This is Cardiform. It's a 20 millimeter disc derived from human hyaline cartilage. What is unique about it is, one, it has all the viable chondrocytes you need, has chondrogenic factors, proteins, and has a collagen type 2 scaffold, extracellular matrix. These three components are crucially important for healing. But what we did on top of that is we treated this piece of cartilage, and we treated it in a way that it's actually, you can have it, you can store it at the point of care, which is a big deal. You can actually, you can cut it, you can shape it, you can put it in the right form, whatever the defect size or format is, you can cut it that way, and you can implant it. And as you can see, there are holes or pores in that product. There's a reason for that. We treated that product in a way that as you do your microfracture, the stem cells come out of the bone marrow. These are mesenchymal stem cells, and we know something about that. And what this product does is, in these pores, the mesenchymal stem cells are captured. And so instead of having this bone marrow floating around or blood floating around the kneecap, we basically take these MSCs and we capture them in this scaffold, and now you have chondrocytes, mesenchymal stem cells, chondrogenic factors, and an extracellular matrix, which is like the perfect cocktail for cartilage repair. So we have done a lot of scientific characterization. I'm not going to go into that right now. This was presented 2 weeks ago. We then did a goat study, for which we just recently received the 1-year data, and we are treating patients as we speak. The product is available, it's on the market. But we now, before we do a full-blown launch, we prefer to do a soft launch and first collect long-term data. The first time point that's meaningful, clinically meaningful, is 1 year. And we are approaching about 30, 35 patients now with 1 year data. So really looking forward to announce that in the not too distant future. But so just as an example of what this product does, I want to show you some histology examples from our goat study. Look at the 12 months side of the graph. Cartilage is a pretty neat structure. It's basically it's a few millimeters thick, but it has 4 distinct layers. You have a superficial layer, a middle layer, a deep layer, and then you have this red area there, which is more of a calcified layer, which is called tight mark. The cells, as well as the fibers, are organized in a particular way, and they are differently organized in each layer. What we have been able to do with the implant of Cardiform is basically restoring the exact same tissue architecture and collagen architecture as you have in the natural host tissue. So on the left side, well, basically on the right, the 12-month side, on the left side of there, you see the area where we have implanted Cardiform. On the right side, this was the host tissue. And so you clearly see after 1 year, we pretty much have restored that cartilage to its original status. Of course, we can't ask the goats how they feel, but nevertheless, from a histological perspective, this is really encouraging, and the patients are going to give the final answers to this. From a differentiation perspective on another product, I want to spend a couple of minutes on graphics. We can differentiate in 2 ways here. We differentiate on a clinical basis, and we also differentiate on a manufacturing basis. We completed this study, and I will show you a couple of slides on that. However, from a manufacturing perspective, and I don't think this slide is actually coming through. Oh, there it is. I didn't know it was that way. So from a manufacturing perspective, we work with placental tissue for this product. You gotta love placental tissue. It's one of the most amazing tissues that the human body has. There's a reason why placental tissue is great. There are 3 reasons for it, actually. 1, it has a really nice, neat, 3-dimensional extracellular matrix, a beautiful scaffold. 2, it has a series of growth factors and cytokines. And 3, it has cells, fibroblasts, epithelial cells, and most importantly, mesenchymal stem cells. Placental tissue is by far the richest tissue to harvest mesenchymal stem cells in. What we are doing with our manufacturing technology is we keep the total structure of the placental membrane intact while taking out, or while basically immunodepleting it. When you dehydrate, when you decellularize, and then there are about half a dozen products out there that are, I would say, highly undifferentiated, what you do is you kill the cells, for sure, but secondly, you also collapse the 3-dimensional matrix structure, which we believe is extraordinarily important for the recruitment of cells. So that's how we differentiate graphics at the manufacturing level. And at the clinical level, just 2 more slides. This is the results of the clinical study. It was a large randomized clinical trial. This is a probability of wound closure over time. I mean, it hardly gets any better than that. You know, the endpoint is complete wound closure after 12 weeks. You see immediately the differentiation in the graphics arm. After 2 weeks, you start seeing significant number of patients having complete wound closures, while in the control arm, it takes a little bit longer, but it never gets above 20%. So this is a huge effect size. And if you close wounds with graphics, you don't close more of, you just don't close more of them, only you also close them much faster. So some wounds were closed on control as well, but it took on average 70 days and took a month less when you're graphics. What was most important for us, somewhat unexpected, when we looked at the adverse event profile, there were actually statistically significant fewer adverse events in this trial in the graphics arm. And when you dig a little bit deeper into it, it is all caused by reduced incidence of infections. And as you know, in the diabetic foot ulcer space, infections is crucially important, is a big concern for the physicians. You get infections, you get hospitalized, you get amputations, costs are skyrocketing. So we were really pleased to see that we reduced this in half. Comparing this trial to some other trials that were done in the last decade, Dermograft, Apligraf, Regranics have done similar trials than this one. You can actually pretty much juxtapose the inclusion-exclusion criteria of this trial compared to these other trials, and you see a powerful effect size, actually 3 times more powerful than Dermograft. And I think for the next couple of quarters, what Osiris will continue to do is grow our revenue, improve our gross margins, get reimbursement for graphics so we can really expand this business significantly, educate the physicians on this trial, and continue to focus our product development on the 2 specific areas of tissue repair and motion preservation. Thank you.
Great, thanks.